Welcome back to Six Rings and Football Things, the final Cadlic's crucial clashes of the calendar year, but not the football season. 2 weeks to go. Patriots coming off a big win in Denver, I guess, on Christmas Eve,
I
4 and
guess.
11 on the season, heading into a big New Year's Eve game against the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo. And joining us as he does each and every week, weei.com Patriots beat writer Michael Cadlick. Does anybody call you
Howdy.
Mike? Anybody call you Michael?
Not really. My
No.
mom, my cousins, but besides that, it's all Mike.
Okay, I'm the
Yeah.
same. I'm Andrew to my wife and my
Yeah.
mother, and that's about it. Everybody else calls me Andy.
Your
So,
wife calls you
uh,
Andrew. So does she? Did you introduce yourself to her as Andrew, or is that just kind of like she's always mad at you, so she's like Andrew?
probably more the latter than the
Okay.
former. Because no, so I was Andy when I was like first started dating
Yeah,
her and everything. So I don't know where that came from.
it's funny.
But it is what it is. But yeah, my mother actually used to get really mad. She doesn't like that my byline and that like when I do TV and radio is Andy.
Mm.
She is like mildly offended that it's not Andrew. So maybe I should change my name like Demario Douglas, who added a big M. We've been writing it
Yeah,
wrong the whole time, which side note, I don't feel badly about. I did it the way I was told to do it when he
right.
arrived in May or whatever, and no one said
Yep.
anything. So that's on PR, that's on him, whatever.
So yesterday, actually, my brother saw my tweet and then sent me a screen grab of Demario Douglas's Instagram. And on Instagram, he doesn't even have the M capitalized, but he
I
does on
hate.
Twitter.
Oh
So
Jesus.
like I was just like, I don't know, man. Like I don't know what PR told us it yesterday. He said it was funny and he didn't know. And so yeah, but I guess whatever he wants, we'll do it. But yeah, that was kind of weird that nobody told us until what is it, December 27th
Right.
of the year. So
And
crazy.
it's not like he hasn't been notable and he just
Right.
started playing. So now this is the opportunity. No. He's been one of the most talked about Patriots players all year, whether it was
Yep.
training camp throughout the season. Like, so yeah, okay. Demario Douglas now has a big M in his name. Big D, little E, big M, whatever. Patriots, Bills. And we're going to do, as we always do before we get into three specific clashes, break down some of the biggest stories of the week, talking points of the week. And I want to start with the star of the week, I guess. Bailey Zappi has now won 2 games in his last 3, twice on prime time, upsets on the road. In Pittsburgh, he wins. In Denver, he wins. And now I think the narrative is kind of gone in a real positive direction for him. He's all smiles, which I
Mm-hmm.
love. He's very likable. He oozes confidence and sort of a genuine love of life and football and everything he's doing. But now suddenly I'm hearing these kind of ties to Kurt Warner because that's his guy and he reached out to him and Kurt
Yep.
Warner had a tough time getting his foot in the door, but when he did, he became a Hall of Famer and won Super Bowl, like the whole thing. Um
When does Zappy get fitted for his red jacket?
and that's where I want to go.
Yeah.
Because I like this story. He's in, me, it starts with entertainment. He's injected some entertainment value into the end of the season, maybe hurting their draft pick status in the process, but whatever.
Mhm.
He's not afraid to make passes. He did play a cleaner game in Denver, but he also, I believe it was 6 3-and-outs he led the offense on, including 3 3-and-outs in the fourth quarter, which
Yep.
totaled, I think, 6 yards. While the Broncos were coming back and the Broncos were tying the game, he was putting his defense in a tough position,
Mhm.
essentially. So we're going to talk a lot about, I think, over the next couple of weeks. Has anything down the stretch changed your opinion of X, whether it's the team, Bill Belichick, the roster, the situation? So I'll ask you that question. Bailey Zappi, who I
Mhm.
think we all believed was the inferior quarterback to Mac Jones in the summer, in training camp, whatever. Has Bailey Zappi changed your mind over the last couple of weeks as to what his NFL ceiling might be?
Yes, he has.
Ooh,
His what his
ooh,
NFL ceiling might be, yeah, is definitely different than what I thought. I mean, I had to interview Bailey last week or on the other day on Jones and Mego, and I talked to him in the locker room a little bit. And whether he knows it or not, I was one of the guys who was like, "No, Zappy stinks," and Mac Jones is a better quarterback objectively. And what we saw in training camp, like he wasn't grasping this Bill O'Brien offense, and they told us themselves that they didn't think he was worthy of a roster spot heading into the regular season. So yes, what he's shown over these last 4 or 5 weeks has been really a big jump from what we saw just 4 months ago. Now, You mentioned the 6 3-and-outs on Sunday, and sort of, and we talked about it before, and we'll get to it when we talk about, Zappy in our matchups, but like the turnover worthy plays and Zappy half hour, as Fitzy's described him in the first couple games, like he's slowly getting better, and he's gotten them 2 wins out of their last 4 games. So ultimately, like how could my opinion of him not change, right? But I still think that though his ceiling has risen, I still think his ceiling is like a high-end backup quarterback in the league. Like I don't think we should look at what we've seen here and scrap the plans and scrap what we thought of this team after the game in Indianapolis. And could it have been solely on the quarterback back then? Yeah, maybe it could have, because Mac Jones was terrible in that game. He threw the awful interception at the goal line. Like, it does go back to the quarterback, but I still don't think you could run back this team with Bailey Zappi and expect to all of a sudden be like the Niners and Brock Purdy and go win a Super Bowl. I just don't see that from him. But overall, yeah, he's impressed me with his moxie and his, everyone's sort of gravitating towards him. The offense is playing better objectively. Like they scored 20-something points. That game, they scored 17 against Kansas City, which is a jump from what they had in Mac Jones. So he's playing better than Mac Jones. He's playing better than he was in the summer. But I do think I'm with you that we need to pump the brakes heading into next season still, unless we go into Buffalo this weekend and he puts up a 30 burger, and then the next week against the Jets he has 3 passing and 2 rushing. Like then we can start to have those conversations. But for now, as we sit 2-2 in the last 4, he's impressive, but I'm not buying his Abby jersey just yet.
So his biggest jump, in my opinion, has been in his post-game celebrations, where in a course of about 3 weeks or 2.5 weeks, he's gone from a handshake with Bill Belichick to a big old hug that he's going in for no matter what. And if his play on the field takes those types of jumps moving forward, maybe we'll have to really, truly reassess his upside. But I agree with you. I think he's looking like, first of all, I think if he was cut today, somebody would claim him. So there's a growth there from where he was to start the year, because he was available and nobody wanted him. Right. But I do think his upside in my mind now is Gardner Minshew, like a high-end backup, kind of a GM and coach killer, that guy that somebody might convince themselves this guy's good enough to start. A more
so that's what I want to cut you off with Minshew there, because like the Colts right now, they're going to make the playoffs with Minshew, and they're sitting on the number 4 overall pick in the draft. And it's like, how do you not go with him? But also, how do you move off from Minshew? Like it puts you in a bind as a front office.
It does. And, we're going to talk about the Bills in a little bit. Ryan Fitzpatrick was a guy that was their starter for a while. I think that's even a little bit higher of that guy who, can he start games? Will he convince you for a month that he's good, but can he do it for 17, 18 weeks? Probably not. And bounce around. He's worthy of being an NFL quarterback. We're seeing that more and more. There's guys that take the field that aren't worthy. So whether is he among the 64 best quarterbacks or 70 best quarterbacks or whatever the number is, that's where I think it's changed, because I think there was some doubt about that for a little while there. A lot of people thought Bill O'Brien I know Rich Keefe uses the phrase, hated him and wanted no part of Bailey Zappi. And I don't know whether that was true or not.
Well, so Zappi even talked about it yesterday with just the difference in the offense, where when he was like, when I was at Western Kentucky, we were air raid. We ran the ball maybe 10 times. We threw it 50. Like the play calls were XYZ compared to a freaking novel. And he was like, yeah, it's been an adjustment. But he was like, now that I'm used to it, I like it now. I understand it. Makes it like better on the quarterback. He said a couple more things I don't remember off the top of my head, but it has been an adjustment for what he ran. And over the summer, O'Brien did probably hate him because he could not grasp the offense for shit at that point. But now it seems like he's sort of, worked his way in and is sort of comprehending what they want to do. And it seems like him and O'Brien's relationship has sort of improved there too.
And I think for me, the biggest play he made in Denver was an early, he was pressured a little bit, rolled out and threw the ball away. And I thought that was like, because the week before he threw it right to Willie Gay in a similar situation. And that's the kind of growth that you need. And so I'll leave the door open to I'm not going to be like, oh, he'll never be anything in the league. No, I'll watch and I'll see how he plays this week and next week. But I do think, as we do in this world in general, like the 15 minutes of fame or like the narrative is kind of ahead of the reality of Bailey Zappi.
Mhm.
We'll see where it goes. Okay.
I mean, Tommy DeVito was selling like chicken cutlet sandwiches at every Italian deli across the entire state of New York 2 weeks ago, and now Tyrod Taylor's starting for the Giants. So.
Right.
And I'm
And
not
that's the way it
saying
works.
Zappi's Tommy DeVito. Like Zappi was a 4th-round pick, known to be a developmental guy, where DeVito was undrafted, bounced around 5 practice squads before getting here. So, but it's kind of that thing where, I mean, is Joe Flacco going to start for Cleveland next year? No. Like, who else is starting this week? Jarrett Stidham for the Broncos. Like, there's so many. There's been like 60 plus starting quarterbacks this season, and I'm with you. Zappi's been impressive, but I want to see how these next things play out before we put the C on his jersey and do we start flooding the shelves with Zappi jerseys?
Okay, so a couple other stories I want to touch on. Speaking of narratives, our buddy Mike Giardi kind of injected newfound life into the Belichick craft, blah, blah, blah. And so the tweet was basically about the fact that Bill has expressed to people around him that he has doubts as to whether he'll be back, which to me is not groundbreaking, newsworthy.
No.
Like, if he didn't express doubts, he'd be the most blinded man on the planet. I mean, another losing season. You got 4 wins. Actually, before this, you only had 2 wins. You've had a little bump here with a couple wins. But Mike tweeted about and wrote a story that I didn't read because I'm not a subscriber, so I can't read. The fact that they haven't met yet, Robert Kraft and Bill Belichick. And Mike believes, based on the tweet, that that's a mistake, a mishandling of the situation. I want to get your opinion on that because I actually think the opposite. I think it's very it's actually a Belichickian way of doing business. Like, we're not going to address the situation till we need to. We're not going to, we have things to focus on now. There will be a time to address that. Right. And I also wonder, like, what would the point, like, if you let him know a month before the end of the season that this is your final month, is that, like, does that change? He's a human being. I know we pretend Bill is just a robot, but he is a human being. Does that change things? So what was your take on this idea that Bill is expressing to somebody that he might be out of a job, which I think is obvious, and then B, Mike's assertion that it's a major mistake that they haven't met and talked about it?
So I do disagree with you, because I do think it is noteworthy that this was sort of reported, because up until Mike really said that, and I think Andrew Callahan said something about it a few weeks ago too, he mentioned, but that didn't really catch as much wind as Mike's report the other day. But I do think it's noteworthy because up until this point, it sort of just seemed like Belichick and everybody in the building was at least trying to go status quo. And I think Albert Breer reported that he was still having scouting meetings and he was setting up assistant coach contracts for the following year. So it kind of felt like Bill was just trying to ignore the noise and not saying anything, at least to anybody around him. So I did think that him at least expressing doubt to people was a sign that, he kind of knows that something might happen here. And he doesn't just think it's media speculation, that the Crafts actually might go and do something. So as far as though, like, the Crafts not speaking to him yet, I mean, I'm with you that it is the Belichickian thing to do, that, the season's not over yet and we're still kind of rolling here and we haven't made a decision yet. Well, what are we going to, I do think it would be kind of weird for them to be like, this is it for you, coach through the season. We're going to celebrate you in the last game against the Jets. And then we're essentially going to fire you without telling everybody that we're firing you. Like, you're bad, but it was good for a while. Please coach the team, even though you're not only a lame duck, but you can't even make the postseason here. You're just kind of going through the motions. So, I mean, I get the respect thing and the fact that it should sort of, Bill has done enough to kind of earn the conversation and maybe the right to defend himself, if you will, and sort of ask for, not necessarily have the conversation and for them to be like, you're leaving, more so, okay, how can we help you improve before you sit there and, be snarky and then we do have to fire you type thing. So I can kind of see both sides to it, but it doesn't, I guess it does shock me a little bit that they haven't spoken about it, because you would think that, being together for 20 something years, supposedly having a decent, at least working relationship behind the scenes, that, like, if Robert Kraft walks by you in the bowels of Gillette Stadium, like, everybody's talking about Bill's job status. So whether like it's kind of an elephant in the room to sit there and not say a word about it. You would at least be like, hey, you're fine for now. Like, don't listen to it. Like, we'll talk at some point. And at that point, at least they're kind of acknowledging it. Where if there hasn't been any communication, I do just kind of find it odd.
And then the one layer that I'll throw in there is I don't think they've had a great relationship over 25 years. I think it's had its ebbs and
Right.
flows. And you have the little blurbs about like Spygate. What advantage did you get? 1%. Well, you're a schmuck then. Like, or that thing from one of the other books where it's like Kraft refers to him as my a-hole coach kind of thing. Like,
but
so
again,
there's that.
I do think there's definitely a working, I guess, respect, if you will.
Sure. Like you're an
a
a-hole, but you do good work
right.
for me. I'm your a-hole boss.
And I'm an a-hole, but you're my boss type of thing. Like, yeah.
Right. But the one thing I would throw in there is the fact that Bill is under contract, and therefore, depending on what the exit strategy is, if there's even an exit, because there's been a groundswell of keep Bill support of late because they won a couple meaningless games against teams that replaced their quarterback the following day. So, really rah, shish goomba. But so there could be, like, let's just put a number on it. He's under contract for 1 year. So let's just say there's $25 million involved and a first round pick if you want to trade him because he's under contract. Now I'm going high end. I don't know if you could actually get a first round pick or not. But
them winning the last couple of games here might bring that up to a first round pick if a team wants to trade for him. Which
correct.
Makes it
if you're the Chargers, if you're the Chargers and you watched your coach lose the team and the team lie down, roll over, and get absolutely embarrassed by a division rival in the Raiders, give up 42 points and a half, and you see Bill's team fighting to the finish, even though they got 4 wins, absolutely that could. But my point is, if you tell Bill you're out, well, you've lost some leverage. Like now, oh, so you're firing me. So I'm free to go wherever I want. And you're firing me. So I get to keep my 25 million and then go make 25 million from the Chargers or the Commander. Whereas Robert might need to tight lip this and, do business and say, I'm looking to not only trade away that 25 million so I don't have to pay 25 million, but also I'll take a second round pick, a first round pick, a 2 and a 3, whatever. So I think that's a layer of, and I don't know where they are in their relationship. Like they let Tom Brady go. They said, okay, you're free and clear. Go do, you've earned the right to make your own decision. Did they learn from that? Did they say, well, that was kind of dumb. We got nothing for the greatest quarterback of all time, and he won a Super Bowl.
That was really dumb, the way that whole thing went. And I know we've talked about it a million of times since it happened, but that was dumb.
And if you let Bill go and he goes and has some success, let's say he doesn't win the Super Bowl, but he has a couple good years, the Shaughnessy's of the world, the real vocal critics, you don't think they're going to say, wait a minute, you had the greatest quarterback and greatest coach in NFL history. Not only did you let them break up, but you let both of them go and got absolutely nothing for it. What a boob of a businessman you are. Like that would. So I think there's a chance that Robert and Jonathan have to tiptoe through this to try to not just save face, but do what's in the best interest of the New England Patriots. Not, I don't think they owe Bill anything. I think they've treated him really well for a quarter of a century. He's done a lot of good work for them. He's made them a lot of money. But am I going to say, oh, yeah, I'll put your best interest ahead of the Patriots? No, I'm going to get rid of the $25 million so I can spend that on a player. And I'm going to get an extra first round pick so I can spend that on a player. And I'll wish you well in wherever the hell you end up. So,
So now, do you think that as far as Bill's contract goes, and then also him like being the de facto general manager, like there's got to be a clause in there somewhere that says like he can say yes or no to the team that he's going to be traded to, you would think, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, he controls it. He has to accept, because he can just do what Gronk did when the Patriots tried to trade him to the Lions and say, I retire. No.
Yeah, right. So like that's what I look at too. Like, is he gonna push back on the first round pick because then he's out of a first round pick next season? Like this whole thing, and I know we sort of know this, and we do this every week and it gets a week closer, but it's coming up very soon. Like we're 10 days away from this thing kind of blowing up here. And it's probably going to get pretty ugly. Like Mike's Giardi's buddy, or not buddy, but Giardi's coworker and Greg Bedard said it a few weeks ago too. Like there's so much around this thing that it really can get ugly fast here because there's so many types of, things involved. There's so many high egoed people involved. Like it's I'm very interested to see how it plays out. Let's put it that way.
Same, and we will be talking about it for
Yeah.
weeks and/or months and/or years and/or decades, depending on how it plays out and the results. But it should be interesting. I don't know if it'll be fun. I don't know if it'll be good, but it should be interesting at the very least.
Yeah.
Another interesting thing this week, getting into this Bills-Patriots matchup that I know you were there yesterday, and Bill Belichick making comparisons between Josh Allen and Tom Brady when Tom Brady ascended to a certain level in 2003, and then Josh Allen has ascended to a certain level. And I found the one word that seems like an innocuous word, those. When those quarterbacks do that, and those quarterbacks he's referencing include Tom Brady and Josh Allen, he is calling Josh Allen a truly elite of elite, blue
Yeah.
chip franchise QB. And as everybody correctly connected, this was a guy that not that long ago, Bill was like, I don't really see the hype with Josh Allen. I don't think he's an
Yeah.
MVP candidate. So what did you think about, the same sentence, Bill Belichick talking about Tom Brady and Josh Allen?
Yeah. I think he's sort of trying to walk back his comments from a couple of years ago
Me too.
that went live that I don't really think they were supposed to. I think they were off the record, and the people, the broadcast team didn't fully understand that.
Yep.
But no, and Josh Allen's kind of kicked their ass ever since then, and so I think that's just him sort of paying respect where it's due because I don't think he's necessarily wrong in comparing Josh Allen to Tom Brady and again, he's nobody's Tom Brady. Like I shouldn't have to give that caveat, but this will get clipped and someone will say that I called Josh Allen Tom Brady. But they're high end level quarterbacks in the NFL. And when he says those types of quarterbacks, he's also telling you that we don't have one of those types of quarterbacks. Like, because he would have just said, oh, he's like Mac in that, like, you know what I mean? But no, I think it's him paying the respect, and I think Josh Allen himself, like he's had ebbs and flows, and even as recently as this year, he's had ebbs and flows. But even since they got rid of Ken Dorsey as their play caller and brought Joe Brady in, and they're kind of getting back to the way Allen wants to play, they've won 3 straight, and he's getting back to that MVP level type of player and type of output. And so I think they're going to have their hands full, and I think. Whether people, I also just love every time Belichick talks about Brady. Like every time he brings up Tom, I just kind of get a little giddy, and I'm also like, okay, like he knows what he had here, and admittedly, he doesn't tiptoe around the fact that Brady's the greatest of all time anymore. Like he sort of would when he was here, and even when it happened, he was kind of just like, well, that happened, we're moving on, type thing. But since he's retired and everything, he's given Tom his flowers, and I like that because it shows that Bill is aware of what he had. To compare him to Allen, again, I said it 3 or 4 times now already, but I think it's valid in that he is a top tier quarterback in the NFL right now.
Yeah, same. I'm a big Josh Allen fan. I really like him. And I know he gets a lot of pushback because of the turnovers and sort of the style of play that can be a little, I guess, Favrean and kind of maddening at times. But to me, this was because we always have this debate of where the line is with franchise quarterbacks, true elite quarterbacks. Patrick Mahomes is obviously atop the list, and then you go through, Joe Burrow is there. Is Josh Allen there? Was Deshaun Watson there pre everything that's gone on with him?
Herbert.
And I think Bill is Herbert, and then Jalen Hurts last year when he ascended into, and I think Bill's telling you, I put him in the truly elite category, whatever that top blue chip quarterback is. I put him there. Okay, before we get into the clashes, one last thing I just want to rant on, tiny second. Again, this is building off of a television appearance I did on NBC Sports Boston last night, where they asked a question to the effect of, is Josh Allen like the blueprint for the Patriots? Because they finally drafted a quarterback in the top 10 after going years of the mid-round pick. I mean, the mid-first round, whatever, J.P. Lossman, E.J. Manuel tries. And I was like, sure, but like he's a freak. Like there's almost no one like him. I think To me, I legitimately, and this may be blasphemy for some Broncos fans, but I think he's the closest thing to John Elway since John Elway in his unique kind of package of athleticism, size, can run you over, throws his body around, but can throw an absolute dart that you don't even
Right.
see. So sure, yeah, Josh, and he was also maybe the most questioned draft pick in the last 10 years when he was
Right.
drafted because the highs were the highs in college, but the lows were really ugly, which he still rides that roller coaster a little bit. But yeah, would the Patriots be better off if they could draft at number 6 a guy like Josh Allen and let him develop? Absolutely. Who's that guy?
Well,
Like,
right. That was also a loaded draft class. I mean, at the time anyway, it was Baker Mayfield, who I mean, Baker right now is playing some of his best football, but Sam Darnold was a top end prospect. Like Josh Rosen, I know where he ended up, but a lot of names. And then Lamar Jackson was picked at the end of the first round of that year.
right,
So like, even though they picked him at 7, I think it was like there was a lot of darts you could throw. Where, I mean, as far as a blueprint goes, I guess the Patriots went that blueprint with Mac Jones, but it was the 15th pick and it was the 5th quarterback off the board. So yeah, I mean, I look at it in comparison to this year's draft class, and we'll talk about Caleb Williams and Drake May, and I would put Jaden Daniels at number 3. Like if you take Jaden Daniels at 4th overall or wherever you land, like I'm okay with that because that is sort of the Josh Allen blueprint where you take a guy early and you build around him. But is Jaden Daniels going to be Josh Allen? Like I think that's unfair expectations for Jaden Daniels. Yes, he can be a
right.
freak athlete. Yes, he can throw the football well, but you have a long way to go there. So I understand the concept of don't take the quarterback late and don't try and develop a second round pick because then you end up. I mean, you mentioned John Elway. What John Elway tried to do with Denver for so many years with Paxton Lynch, and there was a couple other ones that I can't even think of off the top of my head. But
Mhm.
those like late first, Drew Lock, late first, second round picks that you can't really develop into anything. Yeah, take the top dog at the top of the draft. That's what I think the Patriots should do here.
Agreed. And if they can get a guy like Josh Allen, I'll take him because he's
Yeah,
certainly fun to watch and entertaining, and you have a chance to win every game you play. Much like Lamar, I would say
yeah,
similar to Lamar, but I would never call Lamar a blueprint because Lamar, these guys are freak rare talents that you just can't.
right.
And I think if you try to start to project others into being like them, that's where you get into trouble. And
100%.
they're special. They truly are special talents, special players. Okay, so let's get into the Patriots versus Bills in Buffalo Sunday, New Year's Eve, 1 o'clock. A lot of talk this week about how these teams don't like each other. I found that
Mhm.
interesting in the press conferences. Bailey Zappi, David Andrews, a lot of Bills Mafia talk about the fan base and the bus route into the stadium and
Yep.
how it's a really passionate fan base. Bills come in at 9-6. So they've ridden kind of the roller coaster as a team this year, where at one point they were the best team in football. They beat the Dolphins, and I think everybody was like, oh, the Bills are the team to beat in the NFL. They're great. They're awesome. Then at one point they were out of the playoffs. They were like the 9
Yeah.
seed or whatever. Now they're back in the playoff hunt, and people are calling them maybe the most dangerous team, the team you don't want to face. You mentioned it earlier. Joe Brady has taken over for Ken Dorsey. Offensively, Stephon Diggs has 1,000 yards, but some people think he's fading in terms of being a number one receiver. James Cook is probably one of the undersold weapons in
Yeah.
football this year. 1,000
He's
yard
one of
back.
I was gonna say he's one of like 4 or 5 guys to have 1,000 yards on the ground.
Right. And he's also caught whatever, like 40 passes for them. Like he's no Christian McCaffrey, but he's kind of their Christian McCaffrey where he
Right.
runs the ball, catches the ball. And we know they've been looking for years for a running back to kind of diversify the offense.
Everybody
And
links every running back to the Bills. I'm like, just roll with James Cook. He's pretty
right.
good. I don't
He's getting the
understand.
job done.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then defensively, their numbers are still great, even though they lose Matt Milano, who everybody
Mhm.
thought would be a mess. Tre'Davious White, number one corner. They kind of keep chugging along. I did my usual, I don't know if I've ever shared this with you. I have a very simplistic approach to see whether teams are good. I always
Okay.
see which teams are in the top 10 in offense and defense. It's the damnedest thing. And I
Ooh.
feel like if you're in the top 10 in both, you're probably a decent team.
Yeah, I like it.
So there's only 5 teams right now in the NFL that are in the top 10 in both offense and defense. That would be the Ravens, which everybody
Mhm.
thinks is the front runner, the Cowboys, which everybody thinks could be
They're pretty
good, but
good.
they have to prove it, the Chiefs, which everybody's pooping all over these days, even though they're still a pretty good team, the Dolphins, and your Buffalo Bills. Those are the 5 teams in the NFL in the top 10
You
in
should
both
patent
off.
that.
I know, really, it's groundbreaking material. PFF ain't got nothing on me.
Yeah.
So with all that as our background, just give me your general thoughts on this game before we get to the 3 crucial matchups. Like, are the Bills as good as we thought they were at some points? Are they mediocre? Are they maddening? Where are the Bills? Because obviously one of the Bills' worst losses of the year
Mhm.
probably was at Gillette Stadium when
Yeah.
Mac Jones looked like a real quarterback and they scored and like that whole thing.
Yeah, the
So
game
what are
winner
the Bills?
touchdown. Yeah, I mean, they're pretty good. Like I do. I think just an overarching quick thought before we get into it. Like they were 6-6, and they did hit a lull, and they did make changes, and they did have some controversy with their head coach. And Josh Allen looked like he, wasn't going to be or wasn't performing as well as he should have under his OC in Ken Dorsey. But they saw that what the problems were, and they made the changes, and they've sort of rebounded from that. And I think that's what that's what makes a good team. Is it's not going to be all perfect every single week. It's hard to go 16-0. We saw it once. Like you're going to lose games. You're going to hit lows. You're not going to perform your best. You're going to throw interceptions. You're going to let up a ton of points. It's how you rebound and how you sort of get back to the mean that tells me if you're a good team or not. And the Bills have done exactly that the last 3 weeks. And so they're also hitting their stride at the right time, because some teams like the Chiefs hit those lows later on in the season, and it can screw you over as far as seeding. It happened to the Patriots a few years ago. They screw up their seeding towards the end of the year. They end up losing in the wild card round and whatever. Like, so the Bills are a good team, and they're hitting their stride at the right time. We're sitting at December 28th right now. They've won 3 straight. Josh Allen looks as good as he's been all season. The defense, like you mentioned, they've rebounded. So yeah, I'm with you on the Bills. I think they're one of the teams to beat, and they're a sneaky Super Bowl contender again heading into the postseason.
And as Bill Belichick noted, when you have the great quarterback, sometimes the rest
Right.
kind of falls into place or just tags along for the ride. Last I looked, the Patriots were a 12-point underdog
Yeah.
Sunday in Buffalo, which is kind of a big number in my mind, the way the Patriots defense has played, the way they've played mostly close games. Hell, they beat this team earlier this year. Of course, also recent history has the Bills absolutely demolishing the Patriots at times, so maybe that 12 points is warranted. So as we start to break down the game, what's the first Cadlick's crucial clash of the week?
All right. We already touched on it mostly, but we'll give it its due as far as a matchup to watch here, and it is Bailey Zappi versus the Bills defense, because we touched on all of it, but quickly just to kind of rehash it. Zappi finally really put together, and I know you mentioned the 6 3 and outs, and he wasn't great the entire time, but he didn't excel and then hit a wall and then completely fall off like he has over the last few games. Like there was ebbs and flows, and I've used that 3 or 4 times now, but there was, ups and downs in this game against Denver. And obviously he put it together when it mattered most at the end and was able to get Ryland in field position and get the job done. And a quick aside, like I look at a guy like Devontae Parker in this game, who rightfully so has kind of gotten some flack this season after getting the extension, and maybe some people don't really like his attitude, and he's not as good as he should be. But when they ask him to do what he's supposed to do and go get jump balls and catch a quick slant for a first down on 2nd and 3, right? Like he's not a yak guy. When he does what he's supposed to do, he's not that bad. He's actually a pretty good jump ball possession receiver. He shouldn't be your number one. He shouldn't be your go-to guy, but you saw it in that game, and he looked pretty good. But anyway, Zappi 2-2 over his last 2 here, looking like he's trying to make a name for himself moving forward past this season. And now he has a big test this week. This is his biggest test so far, I would say. I mean, you could call Kansas City that perhaps, but they were sort of in a lull where this is on the road in Buffalo against a team who's won 3 straight, a defense, which we'll get to in the next matchup, is one of the best in football. So how does he respond after coming off a high in Denver and playing well on the road? Can he do it again 2 weeks in a row? I want to watch him really closely and see how he responds after some success that he's sort of hitting now off of last week.
And, I think that's kind of been the story of his relatively young infant career here. Remember, he gets thrust into the spotlight in Green Bay and handles himself well. They go to overtime. He doesn't win. And then this year, like you're on the road in Pittsburgh, terrible towels, not an easy place to play.
Right.
Now, I know the home crowd that night was actually kind of more against Mitchell Trubisky than they were against Bailey
Yeah.
Zappi. And you go to Denver, always been a tough place to play. It doesn't matter if your name is Tom Brady, Drew Bledsoe, Steve Grogan, whatever.
Yeah.
That's always been a tough place.
And the Christmas Eve thing too, like I look at it, and that's kind of how I look at this week's game is like one team is fighting for everything in the postseason, and the Patriots have no reason to show up. Like
Right.
it's a holiday, just like last week. You're out of it. There's rumors. You're tired. Like it's week 17 and the season's over. But they did it, and they went out and won last week. So I thought that was impressive too.
Definitely. And so Zappi, I mean, he's the quarterback's always the focal point, but
Right.
he's the focal point of still striving, I think, to put 4 quarters together.
Yep.
Because as you said, like the ebbs, the flows, but he made the throws he needed to. He definitely, there's no fear of pushing the ball down the field. There's no fear of, like he talked about it this week, giving Devontae Parker chances. He trusts him. I think Mac trusted him maybe too much at times. We know that some of those turn into interceptions. But I also, just like looking at Zappi, I found it interesting when he was asked about the Bills defense. I think the only names he brought up were Poyer and Hyde. Like it definitely feels like has been beaten into his head, like know where those dudes are, because those dudes know what they're doing, and those are the guys that'll make the difference between whether you have a good game or a bad game, kind of thing. And they're not the only ones. We'll get into some other aspects of the Bills defense. But he is the story. Like we're gonna watch every throw, we're gonna watch every throw away, every throw into traffic, it's all on him right now because he's kind of deciding not only his own career, but the way that it feels like this season ended. So definitely Bailey's and against Sean McDermott, a veteran head coach who is, taken over the reins there of that defense and has them.
Zappi had a lot to say about McDermott as far as a coach and having those guys put in the right position, and it'll be a big challenge. Like he knows what he's going up against.
Oh yeah, he said well coached more like 6 times in a short paragraph type answer. So whether he believes that, whether that was just beaten into him as a talking point from Belichick, Bill O'Brien et al., I never know. I think some of it, I mean, it's always some of the latter. It's always some of what they were told. They just kind of parrot it right out. But Sean McDermott has something to prove. Like we talk about Bailey Zappi with something to prove. Sean McDermott, let's not forget, a few weeks ago, people like me were like, don't rule the Bills out as a possible landing spot for Bill Belichick. Like they could be a head coach change away like the Chargers from being a much better football, because I'm not a huge McDermott guy. It's funny, I've kind of, steal your phrase, ebbed and flowed over the years in terms of how I felt about him. I don't think he's the most stable of head coaches. I really don't. And I think if the going gets tough in this game, we can talk about Zappi. Can he handle it? I don't know. Can Sean McDermott handle it with his play? As you said, Zappi has got nothing to lose and everything to lose all at once. As David Andrews said, you always have something to lose, like you're playing for your career and whatever. Sean McDermott, if they fall on their face in this game, you get swept by the Patriots, who are a 5-win team, and it costs you a playoff berth. That could be a fireable offense for the Ghoulies. So how does Sean McDermott handle the pressure will also be interesting. But okay, so Cadillac's Crucial Clash is number 2.
You just talked about McDermott handling pressure, but I'm more worried about Bailey Zappi handling pressure in this one because diving more into the offense versus defense here, I'm looking at, once again, I think we did this the last time too, but the Bills pass rush against this Patriots offensive line is really what I'm looking at here, because 50 sacks on the season. I think they're top 3 in the league. Guys like Leonard Floyd, Ed Oliver, Epinesa, Gregory Rousseau is up there too. He was a top, I think, 1st or 2nd round pick for the Bills a few years ago. Like they have a lot of guys on that front who can get after the quarterback, and they've done it all season. They make it a living hell, and Zappi knew it, and David Andrews knew it, and talked about it yesterday too. How it's not only their front on the line, but they bring guys from the back end too, and they blitz their safeties, and they disguise things. Like they make it hell for the quarterback, and they've blitzed a lot. I think they're one of the higher percentage blitz teams in the NFL right now too. So they try and make it tough on the quarterback. And blocking for Bailey Zappi this week is once again a piecemealed offensive line, because Connor McDermott before last week goes out with a concussion. So then they rotate Vidarian Lowe in with Trent Brown because, as our friend Mike Reese kindly put it, he was moving a little bit slower than the rest of his teammates last week, aka he was pretty much dogging it. And I know that Trent is hurt and he's been banged up all season. His ankle, his chest, his knee is like he's taken a beating this year. I'm not going to take that away from him, but he was basically, and this is just kind of my opinion from reading the tea leaves and what we've seen, I feel like he was probably sent home this week and said, just get out of here. Like we don't need this right now. They listed him as only an illness on the injury report on Wednesday, so they took every other designation away. Found that interesting too. So we'll see what happens with Trent. But long story short, their offensive line is now like Vidarian Lowe and James Ferentz and David Andrews, which is good. It wouldn't surprise me if like Adrian Clem ended up suiting up this week and trying to play offensive line for them, because they're in a bad spot and it's gonna be tough for them to handle this Bills front.
Yeah, I'll take the over on sacks.
Yeah.
I can easily see Zappe being sacked 5 or 6 times in this game. You mentioned it. They have 50 sacks spread around by 16 different guys have at least one sack. Watching them from afar, because obviously they've been in some big games, Ed Oliver has been a beast much of the year. You know, we talk about,
and
Christian
he was
Baltimore.
out in their first. He was out in their first matchup too. He didn't play against.
Yeah. And I just envision him having a field day. We've seen a lot of it, and now I'm obviously Cole Strange is not a part of this, but some of these inside guys have given this line the last year and a half a lot of trouble. Ed Oliver, they move all over the front. He's a guy that is he in a contract year? I bet you he's in a contract year.
I don't know. I think he might have actually just like re-signed like a big deal like last offseason.
Because he's a guy that has always kind of been, I don't know that he's ever been as good as he was supposed to be coming into the league.
Right.
And
at one point he was like going to be like the number 1 overall pick out of Houston.
Yeah. Yes. And that's what I mean. And now he kind of is putting that into production on the field.
Yeah.
But as you said, Leonard Floyd off the edge, like Vidarian Lowe, if he steps on the field, is a concern, and he will probably have to step on the field, so it'll be a concern. And Bailey Zappe,
this past offseason, Ed Oliver signed a 4-year, $68 million contract extension.
Okay, then I'm going to flip exactly what I was going to say, because he looked like a guy that was in a contract year fighting for a deal. He's the opposite. I'm going to say he's Jaylen Brown. He got the contract, and now he's trying to prove that he's worth it and live up to it and worked harder. So good on you, Ed Oliver. Sorry for trying to judge you from afar. My apologies, good sir. But that's bad.
My ass.
Yeah, please don't kick my ass. I think this is, if you can win this matchup somehow, if we're not talking about the Bills front, or if we're just talking about how Zappe did a good job stepping up and moving in the pocket, which it's been a talking point this week that he has worked on that Evan Rothstein has kind of led the way in those drills, pre-practice, post-practice, his pocket presence, footwork, all of that. If that can be just stagnated, like if you don't give if there's 1 sack in the game and only a couple pressures, I think that's a first step towards the Patriots winning this game. But my guess is Bailey Zappe is going to be under pressure quite a bit.
Yeah, it's going to be tough.
So, okay. Now Cadlick's Crucial Clashes number 3. Boy, we're getting a little long here. Jeez.
I know. We really, we're rolling. I know. Jeez. All right. Well, quickly, as I just got a notification from the Patriots that they did claim Marco Wilson, a cornerback from the Arizona Cardinals.
Marco.
Polo. Let's talk about the Bills. I'm talking Bills wide receivers, Bills outside wide receivers more specifically versus the Patriots boundary defenders, because it's Alex Austin and it's Sean Wade, and maybe it's Marco Wilson if they can get him ready in 2.5 days. And again, last week, going into last week's game, I think we talked about it on this show, and I wrote about it too. Like, it was Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy who is one of the better, I would say, tandems in football. I mean, Jeudy has sort of slacked off a bit, but
I was going to say, you like Jerry Jeudy more than most, so you're fluffing that duo up a little bit.
But I mean, it's nothing to not write home about. Like, those are two, talented wide receivers, and Wade and Austin, I guess they played pretty well against them. Like, Sutton had scored a touchdown in basically every game this season. He didn't get in the end zone. Like, I don't know. I thought they played well against those guys, who are 2 boundary cornerbacks who haven't had much experience. And Belichick talked about it yesterday, where it's not perfect with those guys, but the more experience they get, the more time they get, in the system, the more times they get jammed at the line, or they have to jam at the line, excuse me. Like, you get your feet under you, because when you're a practice squad player, like, or, even a depth piece like Wade and Austin have been for the majority of their careers, they don't get that game action. And so when you thrust them in at, at random times, like, they're going to get burnt because they're just not used to it. So now they're getting their feet under them. They're getting their feet wet, but now they have to go against who you mentioned before, Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis, who Diggs, I guess, has fallen off, like you said, but he's still going to be and always will be until he leaves that team. Josh Allen's number one option.
Yep.
And then Gabe Davis is a guy who 1 week he'll go for 1 catch for 3 yards, and the next week he'll have 8 catches for 116 yards and 4 touchdowns. Like, that guy's just, that's another ebb and flower is Gabe Davis. But the last time he played against the Patriots, I think he had 1 for 6. So now he's destined for a 100+ yard game. So I want to see how those guys match up against another quality outside wide receiver tandem in Diggs and Gabe Davis.
And not just the issues at corner, which my feelings about the House of Cards. And
yep, and you were very correct. I must listen to Andy Hart next. Every take
I feel like there's a shot about James Robinson coming here.
No, I wasn't even going to do it. I was just going to give you your flowers. Every single take I have next training camp is just going to be a regurgitated Andy Hart take, because he was 100% correct on the cornerbacks. But now that you mentioned it, where's James Robinson?
Yeah, that's true. But you also have that exacerbated by the fact Jabril Peppers didn't play last week, didn't practice early this week. Jalen Mills didn't practice early this week. He was doing like point guard dribbling drills, sitting on the bench, watching practice with a concussion. So if you take those 2 guys away, in addition to the questions at cornerback, against a guy like Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs, like, you're starting to see why this could be a 12-point game.
Exactly.
I will say, though, if you remember, Peppers made that play early. It might have been Josh Allen's first throw in the game at Gillette Stadium, where he drifted off and had the interception.
Yep.
I feel like this game, you never win the game in the first quarter, but you can lose it. Like, if Josh Allen comes out and like feels good and is like hits a couple passes and it's like, oh Jesus, Austin can't hang here, or what? Like, I feel like he could have a day, or vice versa. Like, I feel like if any one of those guys, Miles Bryant was a talking point this week. Bill was gushing about him. If he can make a play early, and then Josh Allen's like, Jesus, here we go again. Why did I turn that over? What was I thinking there? I really think the first drive or 2 for the Patriots defense and these guys in the back end against Josh Allen could kind of set the tone for the way this game plays out and decide whether it's, the Patriots defense put up a good fight, Bills win, or Patriots defense finally got exposed. Josh Allen rolled and put up big points.
And not even exposed, but it's just more so like, they're really taking their beating with these injuries, because again, you talk about two of their best players on the unit, in Judon and Gonzalez, have been out since week 4, and they're still performing up to snuff. So when is it finally going to hit this unit? I feel like this could be a week where that happens.
So we made it through 3 crucial clashes and an entire podcast, and somehow didn't mention the name of Christian Barmore.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, we talked about Allen. You're right.
Christian Barmore is a beast.
Yeah, he is. We'll make him the 4th crucial clash, because it's not even a matchup. It's just, that guy is a stud. He is their best player on defense this season. 3 sacks against Denver. Like, there's nothing to take away from him and how he's playing right now. He's trying. He's kicking ass. He's putting it all out there. This is his best season as a pro. He's going to be worthy of your contract extension if he gets it. When he gets it, they should already have it signed, sealed, delivered on his desk right now. I got no problems with Christian Barmore. Obviously, he's been awesome, and I mean, will he make a difference in this game? We'll see. But yeah, I mean, he's been great.
Yeah, I find it hard to believe in my positive scenario where you force Josh Allen into some things he doesn't want to do, or have him scuffling a little early. I find it hard to believe that will play out without Christian Barmore being a thorn in his side.
Yep, for sure.
If Barmore's not impactful in that middle rush, I think this is a tough matchup overall for the Patriots. Agreed. He's going to have to be. We've raved about him, and deservedly so. Right. And now it's almost becoming an expectation. I need you to dominate. Yeah. If they double you, your problem. Deal with it. If they if they slide to you, sorry, that's how it works when you're really good. Like, this is that next step in his evolution to becoming truly that top tier we count on you every week, no matter what the other team does to
Right.
impact the game. And I
100%.
think this game, with the issues in the back end, this game is on Christian Barmore to some
Yeah.
degree to get the job. And obviously Anthony Jennings and Josh Uche and some of those
Yeah.
others, but they're down here. They're complementary guys. The stud up front is
He's the
Barmore.
linchpin now of that
Yeah,
front for
absolutely.
sure. Yep.
Absolutely. Okay, so Patriots at Bills, 12-point favorite. Buffalo, the home team, the Bills Mafia, they're fighting for playoff seeding. They're fighting to remain the most dangerous team in football. They're looking to win 4 in a row, but the Patriots looking to win 3 of 4, hot as they've been all year. What does Mike Cadlick think is going to happen on Sunday in Buffalo?
So I do like the fight the Patriots have shown. Like I think that there's something to say about the fact that, and I mentioned it already earlier, but like going into Denver on Christmas Eve out of the playoffs, they're fighting for something, you're fighting for nothing. They could have easily rolled over and died and lost by 30 and nobody would have thought anything of it. It would have just been, oh yeah, that's where we are. But they didn't. They fought, and I think they'll fight again this week. I think they hear it, they see it, they have that momentum. And Zappy does, and the defense does, and Barmore and all those guys. Like they want to continue to succeed and show why the team that we saw earlier in the season isn't that team now. And I do think they'll do that this weekend against Buffalo. But I also think that the Bills are just a different beast right now. Like Bill Belichick said it, 3 in a row. You wrote them off early, and now here they are. So I do think Buffalo wins this one. I think the Patriots will probably cover that 12-point spread, but I don't expect it to be all that close. I think the Patriots will fight, but I just think the Bills win it. So 24-13 Bills. Like they just cover the spread. Like I think it'll be lower scoring than the Bills games have been in the past. And I think the Patriots offense will put 1 or 2 in the end zone, but at the end of the day, it's just not going to be enough. So long story short, I'm going Bills 24, Patriots 13.
Okay, and I'm going to actually make a prediction this week because I'm honestly not sure if we're doing a Six Rings preview podcast with Fitzy and myself because we're doing radio and I'm not sure where he is. So make sure I cover my bases and get it in here for our friends at FanDuel. Make every moment more. I do think the Bills are going to prove a point. I do think Josh Allen has had a bee in his bonnet for Bill Belichick, and I think Bill is trying to make up for those comments, as you said, that we're never supposed to reach the ears of fans. I think the Bills are the better football team. I think the Patriots are just fighting an uphill battle. I don't think they were all that talented to start with, and then you remove guys at certain positions. I can't just ask Christian Barmore to carry the defense. I can't. The back end is decimated. Josh Allen is really good at home. To me, I think this has a chance to be an out-of-hand game. I think Vegas knows what they're doing, putting it at 12. You're not playing Mitchell Trubisky. You're not playing a quarterback that's going to get benched the following week. Give me the Bills to win 36-12.
Wow.
I don't
Big
know.
going up 12 points, huh? How do they do that? Is that 4 field goals?
So Chad Ryland misses a PAT but hits 2 field goals.
I like it. All right, there we go. Sounds good. Just like last week.
12.
Yeah.
Okay,
right,
Patriots, Bills, New Year's Eve, Sunday afternoon in Buffalo. You get to watch the great Josh Allen, who is the modern day Tom Brady, according to Bill Belichick. He didn't actually say that. I'm just kidding. Busting your balls, Bill. Don't get mad at me. But the Bills are fighting for playoff positioning. The Patriots, we don't know what they're fighting for. They're fighting to be professionals, and fans are fighting each other as to whether they're rooting for or against their football team and draft picks or not draft picks and that whole thing. He is Mike Cadlick. He did another great job coming up with the clashes for one more week, and he only has to do it for one more week because next week we'll be back prior to the season finale against the Jets, and then prior to all hell potentially breaking loose in Patriot Nation. But that's still a little more than a week away. Bills, Patriots, Sunday, Buffalo. He's Cadlick. I'm Hart. Six Rings out.
See ya.